Hey.
Hi.
Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions 4 p.m. BST on a Tuesday afternoon, following up on our series from last week, which was based on earned media. This week, we're going to be discussing the technicalities of link building to your third-party website outside of Amazon. Today with me, I've got Mark, Britt, and of course, Lexi. Mark, do you want to kick things off and do a quick introduction and tell people who you are?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Mark. I used to work as the creative director at an SEO agency, and as part of the creative side of SEO was usually about coming up with content ideas that could get featured on lots of sites, big, powerful sites that all link back to your site, and that can help your site in the rankings. Since then, I've kind of moved out on my own on a site called Hubble, where I train people how to come up with creative ideas, again, that will get lots of links and attention online.
Excellent. Up next is Britt, if you don't mind unmuting your microphone.
Sure. Hi, I'm Britt. I'm a digital marketing consultant, and I specialize in digital PR and content strategy.
Excellent. And over to you, Lexi.
Hi, I'm Lexi. I specialize in integrating PR with SEO. So I work with people like Mark, we work with PR agencies, SEO agencies, direct with clients, just figuring out how we get the best type of links for the clients and their work.
Excellent. So let's just kick straight into, everyone understands the concept of how the web works and link building, so we don't have to do the basics there. What's really important for us as Amazon sellers and within inside of our communities, a lot of people have third-party websites, most of which is on Shopify. And we know the importance of building backlinks to our website, but we also know it can be a huge amount of work, and it can also be very confusing because of the constant updates from Google. Google's algorithm is far more complex compared to A9, which is Amazon's. So, Mark, do you want to just kick things off to just give a general idea for today's call of what we're going to be discussing in terms of the framework of link building and some of the approaches that we'll have?
Sure. I mean, yeah, like you said, Danny, over the years, Google is using links to indicate that a site is valuable and relevant for a certain result. Because although it's hard to kind of imagine, Google did at one time have competitors, and still technically do, and the way that they beat off Yahoo and MSN and all that is by having better results. And that's making sure that whatever you type in, they understand what you want, and the thing that comes up is relevant and valuable. And their way of determining value was always the links. And so there's been, in SEOs have always tried to kind of, in a way, game that, try and get lots of links to look valuable rather than maybe being valuable. But Google are getting better and better, which is kind of pushing us towards you do need to be valuable. You need to provide really good content that is valuable on the topics that you're specializing in. So there's been a bunch of tactics over the years that now no longer work, like spinning articles and submitting to loads of directories. And I won't go through the laundry list, but they're all effectively ineffective now. And actually, one of my former colleagues, Paddy Moogan, he wrote the book on link building that's worth checking out if people want to look that up. But also, he did a survey recently for his agency Aira and asked, these were agency owners, so there will be some distinction here, but what tactics they were using now. And like the top 4 or 5, it was pretty distinct, the top 4 or 5. And, there's Reactive PR, which Lexi and Britt are probably better to talk about, but that is when journalists are looking for commentary on stories and they put out requests and people respond to them. There's creating content, and then particularly content that has some kind of data and some newsworthy stories that the journalist can cover, and then they link back to your original content. And then there's some simple things like people looking for where you're getting mentioned in the press or where you're getting mentioned already, setting up some alerts and making sure you just contact them and say, hey, I noticed you mentioned us. If you wouldn't mind linking over here. I don't get involved in that, but that can be fruitful. Guest posting. Now, Google have kind of come out with some guidelines saying that guest posting isn't really allowed anymore, but I definitely still see it work, and I definitely still see it as a really valuable form of content creation. Why wouldn't you want to post on a site that your industry are reading and link back to yours? There's one more I'm forgetting. Broken link building, which is similar to the request. If you notice if people are linking out to maybe an old resource that isn't live anymore, you could contact them and suggest a new resource which happens to be on your site. I don't get involved in that one, but that was the other one people were using.
Lexi, Britt, give us your take on link building in 2021 now. Obviously, it's changed over the years. You see all that crap that's on Fiverr with Angel Links and .edu, and it's just junk, most of it, isn't it? Well, nearly all of it is junk that's going to be worthless over a period of time because of being penalised and stuff. But where do you see now is for people listening to the show, like Amazon sellers, they're wearing a lot of hats at the moment. What is the least path of resistance, shall we say? Starting with you, Lexi. Least path of resistance to start campaigning to get link built to your Shopify site, for instance, if you're a commerce store.
Sure. I mean, one of the easiest things you can do is just getting product placement. And I see so many people don't get this together. All you need really is almost a contact sheet of high quality images of your products, descriptions. We like to theme them. So you'll do the summer edition or the Valentine's edition, and getting those to the right people who are doing those gift lists. I mean, we get a lot of links. I think maybe one client alone last month on a very small budget got 40 links. Yeah, and we got links to, they are a version of Amazon for their sector. So they got the links to their site and to their brand sites. It's super easy to do, and it's almost what we would call good hygiene. You know, a lot of the work we do is good hygiene in the same way that you would make sure that you're technically safe and structured well before you start doing loads of offsite efforts. Same with PR and link building. You want to start with the base efforts and make sure they're all ticked off. But I want to jump back a little bit to something Mark said, which I think is really true. You know, there are all these tactics we used to use. These tactics were aiming to fake that you were popular, that this site should rank. PR is about earning that, showing people. It should be an unveiling, not, it shouldn't be a smoke and mirrors exercise. If you're focusing on authenticity, I guarantee you'll survive every update. And it's beautiful. Every update, your clients get happier, you are happier. So thinking about how you can earn that, news jumping is another great one. News jumping, if you've got a really strong bio on your website.
So news jumping, what does that mean? Sorry, what if we were to break that out? Yeah. So
news jumping is, let's say you've got an antivirus software, and a journalist is asking for a quote from a computer virus specialist, and you get that quote to them. And you need to get it to them faster than anyone else. You need to get them a strong quote, none of this woolly stuff. If you're not going to say something real, don't say anything at all. That's a burning of budget. It's a waste of a journalist's time. It's a waste of yours and the client. But discuss with clients, find their comfort zone, or find your comfort zones. What are you willing to own? What are you willing to be brave about? That's really key. Then making sure that whoever is your spokesperson, we like to have 3 or 4, they have a really good bio on the website. Because when we place quotes, we get links from the person's name to their bio on the site. Because it makes sense. Hey, that person said something smart. Who are they? Click through, find out more about them. It's an honest earning of a link, and it works super well if you're fast and if you're committed. But you have to be willing to say something. You can't just be walking around being wishy-washy.
Okay, cool. Britt, you got any comment here? Your
yes. So Lexi definitely answered 2 of the ways that I was going to recommend a news jumping. I call it news jacking. I like news jumping way better though. And also, as far as that goes, I would also say that you can make the news as well happen for yourself. Say you are responding to these horror queries or journalists, who are looking for example, a security expert, and you get familiar with who those journalists are that are typically, looking for experts to provide commentary on that topic. Keep a good pulse on the news that's happening in your industry and draft, reactive commentary that you think answers questions that journalists might be asking that speak to that news item. That's something that you can do, and you don't have to necessarily rely on finding a journalist who's looking for an answer, you can go to them and be like, I have a story for you and I have commentary that you're welcome to use. And if you also say, and you have to be honest about this too, don't go to all of the journalists on your list and say this commentary is exclusive only to you, but you can go to one journalist and say, I have exclusive commentary for you, and that also adds a level of appeal to that journalist to want to include that quote because you're only giving it to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Mark, value of a link. So how does someone determine, I know we talked about page rank and the stuff, or at least me and you have, I'm not sure, we may have talked about it a few years ago on the show. Page rank and the value of the link as well, because it's all well and good going out to speak to journalists to get the quotes and everything else, but the idea behind it, the end goal, is to get valuable links to go back to your website. So how would you break that down in terms of definition of where to go and where to approach to avoid, there's do follow and no follow and stuff we can get into later, but where would you suggest to start that process?
So, I mean, the page rank that you referred to was kind of Google's own measure of the authority of a site and authority of a page. And then there's a lot of tools that people use to try and analyze websites they might want links from, and there's loads of them. Majestic, Moz has one, there's Ahrefs, and they all kind of have their own measures, which are an approximation of what Google might be looking at. Whether it's domain authority, domain trust, or whatever else they call it. But these are all just an indication of the strength of a site. And you generally want that to be quite high, but don't put too much weight on it to an extent. I mean, the big thing to really look for is relevance. I'm more interested in sometimes almost doing it a bit more manually and figuring out who's writing about this stuff, who's ranking for this stuff, who are people following and engaging with, so who already ranks for the topic. Are there sites there that you can get in? And almost doing it a little bit more manually. So you want relevance, and strength would be an indication that that site itself is well linked to, or that it's read, or that it's engaged with. I was doing some research in the Internet of Things space, IoT, and there was one site that maybe by the traditional metrics you wouldn't say is like a brilliant site, but actually it is. It's really well engaged with. It ranks really well for lots of the right terms. But if you looked at just the page rank or domain authority, it wouldn't have quite cut it. It wouldn't have looked as impressive as it is. But it is actually, if you look into the more human side of it, this is a site that people engage with, and that's where you'd want to be. And particularly if it's on the topic, like we mentioned last time, someone in the sort of health and fitness space. The other nice thing about that is you're not just link building for link building's sake. It's like, this is a site you would want to be on. This is getting in front of people you want to get in front of. And then you get both the strength of the link, the relevance of the link, plus the PR attention of being in front of the right people.
Yeah. So on a technical level, let's just say someone was not to avoid going the press route, and they would rather say, okay, I'm going to give you some money. I want you to build relevant links to my site. I mean, there are people out there, people pay $400-500 per link, but their job as the link builder, which is hard work to do with the outreach and stuff, is to get it placed in the right location in terms of relevancy of content. Do any of you guys partake in that at all, or is that something that's kind of died a death now, do you think? Going
People
to Lexi.
ask for it, for sure. So I sit in both religious camps when it comes to links. I don't allow people to specify follow or no follow. We've seen ranking improvements and domain authority improvements significantly on no follow links, and going to that granular detail encourages the wrong mindset. But I do think for some industries, it will sway a little bit more. Where the link is on the page will have a difference. But long term, the thing that really impacts and is stable and you can rely on and you can grow your business on are links that are natural, truly and utterly natural, and people are going to click on them. We had one client come to us and they said, we just need another piece of coverage just like this one. So they do big software acquisitions. They only need 6 clients a year. Each client is about 1 to 3 million for them. And it all comes from one article and one link in that article that people click through. So they didn't need SEO for their site. They just wanted someone laser focused on getting them more clients like that. So I think there has to be some awareness that the technical aspects of links do play a role now, but it won't be for forever. And it's a bad mindset and a bad habit to get your company into thinking that way. That being said, I do appreciate some of the tougher industries. It's a bit like if somebody's fighting with fire, you kind of have to. You look at gambling or debt management, there's a certain proportion of bought links across the platforms, a certain amount of very specific targeted links. But I don't think that will ever stand the test of time. And one of the things we've noticed, which goes against everything you could look at, is trade media. Trade press hardly ever have a domain authority above like 50, maybe 60 if they're really rocking it out, and there might be tech trade. We've seen so much ranking movement, direct click-throughs, phone calls from placing good stuff on trade press, and they're cool to work with. And the best part is then you take that piece of content and you get into a conversation with a national journalist and you point them at the trade press. So that national journalist doesn't need to know and trust you. They trust the trade publication. And we've gotten some really good coverage by sort of bunny hopping our way to the bigger links. But at the very base, it's links that people would click on, do care about. And I think that probably tells Google way more. And with machine learning in the algorithm now, I can't imagine that's going to slow down. If anything, it's going to speed up.
Yeah. Cool. Britt, any comment here?
Yeah, and just to add to what Lexi said, a lot of the national publications will pull their stories from the trade ones too. And not necessarily steal it, but use those outlets as a reference guide to what they should be writing about. So another bonus for getting a mention in trade publications.
Yeah.
And why you definitely shouldn't discount them.
Cool. So we've kind of agreed that it's changed quite a bit now, because all I keep thinking about is an Amazon seller with so many things going on. They want the least path of resistance, right? And so the link building, a lot of the guys wouldn't go to this level of what you guys do unless they bring in a third party agency to do this. Now, let's talk about some of the things that you shouldn't do. Like, you obviously get a lot of spammy emails saying we'll build, your website's not getting any visibility, we can build links, and they come from third world countries, wherever they may be. So obviously it's not to be trusted just to let anyone build links to your website, because it can have quite damaging effects over a period of time. So if you engage with like an SEO agency, and I don't know if they still use them, but do you remember network farms? They used to build. Is that still in existence now? Not encouraging it, but I remember a few years ago it was a big thing. Do
you mean like blog networks, those things?
Yeah, they're like a farm, right? So they've got a connection of networks all together, and then they would place links with relative the anchor text to the post. But then if you were to look at the site, it was just junk basically, and there was just like links on all these pages. But the domain authority and everything on that site was like quite high. Therefore, they were using that to try and get some juice from it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff got wiped out in various Google algorithms, and that I do know that. So there is some kind of black hat people still doing things like that, and apparently does still work. And the black hat meaning that it's against Google's terms and conditions, and if you are caught, if their algorithm does catch you out, you can be completely de-indexed, like can't rank anywhere. And like I had a kind of quite stark example of this quite a few years back. We inherited a debt client. In fact, Lexi, you worked on this one too. And we had to go back through this list of links that they were paying a monthly fee for. And it was, like £500 a link or something per month. And they've got thousands of these things. It was insane. But we had to kind of help them clear all this out. So we stopped them doing that and wanted to encourage them to do a more natural link building thing that was going to fit in with Google's terms. And But I was in the boardroom once, and I have to keep convincing them that we shouldn't be doing the paid link building, doing the things that are against the terms. But a lot of people in their industry were, and it was working. And the CEO even walked in and sat down beside me and was like, "Why are we doing this? Can you explain this to me?" I even went back to my boss at the time. It's like, "Are we sure they shouldn't be doing it?" And he explained to me, it's like, "Look, Google could wipe them out in one turn of the algorithm. And if it's one person and he owns his own site and he's not employing other people and he knows the risk, fine. But this is a guy that employs 200 people. If we take that risk and suddenly they get wiped out, those people all lose their jobs. So there's like an ethical consequence to it too." Yeah. And actually eventually, and we were sitting holding firm with this. Eventually one day Google did massive algorithm upset. All the people at the top of the rankings for their industry plummeted, and suddenly our guys are on the front page. But you're kind of holding on there going, I know this is the right thing to do, but some of the stuff that shouldn't work does work, but you have to understand that it's a real risk, and to know what you're doing.
So effectively you're talking about is the paid links, as I remember, is that you're literally renting those, aren't you? So they'll go to a high domain site, you'll have a catalogue of links, and each month you'll pay a fee, and if you stop paying, then they will take that link off of the website, which obviously was against Google's terms of service, I think, back then. So
because go for it, Alexi.
No, I think that client is such a great example of the future of link building. I mean, Mark had really convinced the client to hold their strategy. I really thought the moral aspects, I was all behind that. But the best part of that client, for me at least, was when I got a chance to sit down and chat to him. I was like, you were just sitting on stories of stories. Like, they bought a list of clients from another debt management company that went bust. And so we went out with this hero story of how bankrupt people went bankrupt and now being saved by our client. And I mean, this client, when you just chatted to him, firstly, he loved to chat, and he would just run stuff off. And this was where I learned that clients have their own media contacts, but they don't always have time to go to them. So maybe 4 or 5 journalists that are probably some of the biggest and strongest contacts I have, I got through introductions from him, because he didn't have time to do that kind of media relations, but he had great stories. I learned so much from him, and their website was horrid. They did not deserve for anyone to link to them. It looked awful, but they had the right stories, and we used every trick we could in the book to get honest earned links. And I remember actually one of the links we got was IVA management or debt management. It was basically, the journalist was so nice to us, understood our industry, was so pleased with the story. He gave us 3 anchor text links that actually looked dodgy. But it was just like a present to say thank you for the story. And I was like, this looks really dodgy, but it wasn't. So I think that client is a very nice example of all the things it takes to do good link building.
Yeah. So what about the strength? Obviously, from my understanding, it's still the same. Is the deeper you go back into the website, so the blog posts and stuff, the authority goes down, because your homepage is where you're going to get most of the authority. Does that still stand now? So let's just say let's say New York Times or the Guardian in the UK, for allowing for UK and US audience. What kind of impact do you think that will have on the lifestyle section of the Guardian in the UK versus the homepage? Obviously, traffic permitting, you're going to get traffic, right? But in terms of being deeper, in terms of domain authority there, what do you think is the balance?
Well, the homepage isn't static, firstly. So the best benefit of the homepage, I mean, a lot of press use the Daily Mail homepage as almost like their own press room / story inspiration. So you get more coverage off the back of it. But we see, if you're on something like the Guardian or the Telegraph, we see quite a lot of benefit from having links in there, because people go back to those posts time and time again. They'll rank for more specific terms that are more relevant to you. But yes, homepage links are great. There are parts of the sites that are weaker, but at the end of the day, if you wait enough time, the page authority amounts for the different articles if they're good, and you've always got the root domain authority of the link as well.
Oh, we lost Danny. He's back, thankfully.
There we go. I'm back now. Sorry, Cookie went to eat the Amazon guy at the door. Sorry about the barking in the background, but that's what happens when you are live. Mark, what's your take on that as well? Just bouncing off Alexi.
I got thrown by you disappearing. I thought we were going to have to take over. Sorry, what were you just saying, Lexi? The homepage links in that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's true that the further a page gets from the home page, technically it might be a less strong page, but there's two things. One, that is technically true, but it can lead to you kind of pursuing the wrong things. Like, it's very rare that you can get a link on a homepage of a site and it stay there. You're generally getting links from sites that are publishing, and your page gets pushed further down in the archives. But as long as you're kind of getting a breadth of links and a quantity of links, and they're from respected sources, I haven't ever pursued trying to get a homepage link. I mean, we've had homepage links on, say, TechCrunch, but like Lexi said, it sent loads of traffic. It created lots of social shares, and it also when somebody sees something on the front page of TechCrunch, loads of other sites write about it, and that's the real value for me of getting on the front page of somewhere like that. But I never really chased that kind of something to stay on the front page, because there's not many natural ways that you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, with link building, we know it's tough, right? It's a long slog to get there. And I think everyone wants to get stuff done quick. But what would you say the reality now is taking a new domain and you just built your website? Realistically, how long is it going to take you, even to be locally, to start ranking on some respectable search terms that have some search volume? It's got to be 9 months, right? 8 or 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where nobody's wanting to jump forward and answer that one.
It's all right. I know it's your trade, and I'm not trying to put everyone off. We're just straight shooters on seller sessions, so
but it's very long term, and I'd say it's super unpredictable. It depends on the industry that you're in as well, and the keywords that you're trying to rank for. So it's kind of hard to answer that question in a vague sense. But what do you guys think?
We did a fairly solid experiment this year. We launch a lot of the courses for the big universities. The courses have unique names. We do the research for them, but what we go for is a smart answer for the course. And we have a fairly strong tactic where we get an article in Yahoo News, and that will rank for the course name. Because the moment we launch a course for one of our universities, you get copycat courses that they come up within 24 hours. So we own the space on the front page that goes to Yahoo News, and even with a fresh website, because sometimes it's not the university themselves serving the course, it usually takes maximum 4 to 5 days for us to have our client sites ranking for the smart answer at the top in relation to the course name. But the course name is somewhat unique, and that's important to note. It's not like ranking for AirPods or computers. But once you've done that, then you can start to diversify. So to go for long tail, it can be done quickly, but it has to be specific, and it has to be done in a certain way.
Okay, so as we kind of coming towards the end of the show, I'd like to put out to you guys. I'll give you, let's say, sports, and let's just say, I don't know, boxing gloves as an example, right? So you've got you're a seller on Amazon. You set up your Shopify site. The domain's a month old, right? It's not 6 months, it's a month old, because I don't know whether, if you still sandbox and stuff, my knowledge doesn't extend back that far if there's been any changes recently. You're selling boxing equipment. Starting with you, Lexi, you want to build links. How would you start that process off?
In a perfect world, I would get a bunch of customized gloves. I would probably make some silly pun that is a play on the client name that relates to the gloves. So, because I love a pun, and it tends to make journalists giggle too. And I would launch them as unique products, and I'd be aiming to get these unique product names ranking and getting them on the sort of top lists of best fitness products, especially if they were like those IoT gloves that you can get at the moment. We had a client with those. They were so cool. You can hit things and you get data about it. Awesome. But I would aim to get it ranking for something longer and something unique and something that gets you on a list that will last. So, like the Stylist magazine or the Time Out Best Fitness Equipment magazine, those lists just hang around for a while. And that would be our first aim. Get yourself there. At the same time, speaking to the client about what are the core subjects you can own? What is it right now that you feel really strongly about? And we would get a couple of storylines around that built out, and we'd be news jumping every opportunity for those. And we'd be selling those in as more sort of feature, interview, and op-ed pieces. And after that, then you can go to more campaign ideas. I'd probably ring Mark.
Okay, so Mark, take over on the campaign ideas.
I was trying to cheat and quickly find out what people are talking about with boxing, but I don't quite have enough time. Yeah. But yeah, I think initially I'd want to try and ideally, it can take, as you said, it could take a while to build up links and build up the results from that. So I would try to do something where it's something that it's somewhere you'd want to be, it's something you'd want to be creating anyway. There was a thing recently that's saying, you must have heard about the increase in people playing chess because the Queen's Gambit. I'd be curious to know, is anything like that going on with boxing? Is there an increase in people taking out because you can go out and box?
I think, there's people doing more boxing training and stuff at home since lockdown. I think there's certain things that you can do, sales of punch bags and stuff have gone up as well. I don't have the data, but I know the boxing world is been affected. Like we're at the Boxing Board of Control in the UK recently have stopped boxing again. So there was no fights this month. And then the first fights is coming back on the 28th of February next month. But I think Eddie Hearn, who's the biggest promoter over here, is doing some stuff in Singapore and looking to do some stuff for China because he needs to place the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fight somewhere.
Yeah, so I'd be looking to see if there's anything that we can tap into and find out where people are talking about this. And I mean, you'd obviously to do classic marketing as well, like who specifically are we going after? Are we going after the experts, or actually is this for people that are just taking it up and try to think about where we might find them? Like there's a publication in London called Coach or something, which is all about health and fitness. It's kind of like Shortlist or Stylist these days, but all about health and fitness stuff. That might be a really nice place to get in if we can get some stuff in there and look at the sites we want to be in. What do they write about on this topic? What can we create that can tie into this? Maybe bring a little bit of data like that if we could show increase in search volume or something based off of recent events and try to tie in with that. But there's always a little bit of research to find out what people are talking about and find out how we can tap into that.
So we mentioned the tools last week. Do you want to quickly run through them quickly again so that helps with summarizing the show?
For me, if there's only one, it's BuzzSumo, which tells me what is getting social engagement on any topic you care to put in. But you could also do something like Ahrefs, which will tell you what is getting links on that particular topic. It'll also tell you what links your competitor sites and stuff are getting. And then SparkToro is a really interesting one, bit of a new one from Rand at Moz. And it shows you where your audience are. The people that actually engage on this topic, what are they sharing? Who are they following? And not what are they sharing, but what sites are they engaging with? What influencers are they engaging with? And that's really gives you the more natural, like this is where people are and what they engage with. And maybe this is where you should be talking to them anyway.
Okay, cool. Britt, we'll give the final words to you.
Yeah, I think maybe even pairing it, we talked about this last time, I think, but pairing it with an event of some sort, like a virtual event. Of course, right now it's all that we can do. So maybe if you have the additional budget, hiring somebody in that space who's well known for their boxing. I don't know who that might be. You seem like you could list off a bunch of people, Danny. But hiring somebody who can go ahead and give virtual lessons on how to box for beginners, or maybe even have like an Ask Me Anything sponsor, Ask Me AMA on Reddit or something. In which that's sponsored by that boxing company, having them ask that person about boxing and why they box and all of that jazz. So just pairing it with a virtual event is all that I can add to all of the other wonderful ideas that Lexi and Mark already gave.
Cool. Can I actually, last question I want to ask is, we haven't tied in the social aspect. How key is social in terms of link building now, and the signals that Google will not accept, but will use as indicators? Does that play a big role, do you think, in terms of link building?
Not on that side of it in terms of the signal per se, but it's really useful for getting the links in the first place.
Yeah.
We had Britt. Did you work in the rhythm game? Yeah. Or we had this game where we just quickly saw how well people could keep a steady drum beat. There was one playing in the game, and then you had to tap along, and then the drum beat stops, and you have to play it for 4 bars, and it tells you how good you are at keeping rhythm. And that thing, we just seeded it for like $500 on Facebook, because it had a bit of a viral mechanic to the game. It was quite catchy. And then it got like hundreds of thousands of social shares, and off of the back of that, hundreds of links. Because social is like the first place people go to share stuff now. You know, the link building thing with Google started when it was all blogs and stuff. It was almost pre-social media. Yeah. But I think it's a huge part of stuff getting out there now. But it's more from that aspect I look at it, as opposed to like the metric itself influencing rankings.
Sounds good. Lexi, best way people can reach you?
Twitter, LinkedIn, email, although my email is fairly hard to find. But actually, no, Lexi Mills press release, you'll probably find it. But yeah, always happy to chat and answer questions. Other people's questions make me think about tactics I'm using, and am I giving the best advice? And sometimes I reevaluate a tactic that maybe has become out of date and I haven't noticed. So I really do welcome questions.
Excellent. Britt?
Yeah, Twitter, LinkedIn, and my email, britt@brittklontz.com.
Excellent. And Mark?
On Twitter, I'm at Epic Graphic, which is a throwback to my old infographic creation days, which have never changed. And the website, contenthubble.com, which will be live either this week or next. It should be this week. Hope, fingers crossed, it goes live this week.
Sounds good. We'll have you guys back for the final installment of the show, which we'll announce next week. Tomorrow we'll be covering DSP. We'll be back to Amazon PPC. We'll have Brian Johnson, George Maressa, my partner, Dr. Ellis Whitehead, and Brent Saradnik. So again, we'll do a round table. We're going to take a fresh look at DSP. Should you be using it for your Amazon brands? Do you really qualify in terms of the expenditure, the top funnel stuff, and the various different mechanics in and around running a DSP campaign? So I'll be back here 4 p.m. BST tomorrow. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, and thanks a lot.